Great, great. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. Tonight we have a few things to get through. Um, Again, if you're a guest, I'll drop this form in the chat just to provide us with some contact info and ways for you to stay in the loop with what the SWAB is up to. So we have a few items on the agenda tonight. While we're waiting for folks to join to see if we reach quorum for a vote on some things, I'll pass the mic, so to speak, over to Beyond Plastic to give us an update on some things going on with plastic legislation and ways the rest of QSWAB, Beyond Plastic is a member of QSWAB, the way that the rest of QSWAP can get involved with some of the work going on there. So let me know if you need screen sharing or if you just want to chat, but we can start with that while we see if we can get a quorum.
I'll share the slideshow that we have, but I'm not going to go through all of it, but just so there's something you all can reference.
Awesome. So I made you co-host. Let me know if you
And
still.
I'll start off, and then Renee, do you want to start off? Or both of us are doing this. Renee's also in Beyond Plastics on the steering committee, Queens.
How about you get everybody up to speed on the two bills and the status in the legislature, and then I can move over to the key asks we have for everybody.
Love it. Perfect. Okay. Okay. So, oh, see, this already needs to be updated. This is -B because we had a small amendment, but okay. So this is a little bit just like it's from a month ago or something, so it's slightly out of date, but not in a major way. So I'm not going to go through like why plastic is really terrible. But just has to mainly do with the fact that it's not biodegradable, it's turning into microplastics, which are getting into everything, and they're so sticky, and they're in soils and water and salt and fish and seafood and then in our bodies, in our bloodstream, deeply embedded in our lungs and even in the placenta, etc. So I can go on, but it's really sad and scary. So just know that these are for just really persistent, and they're accumulating in our bodies. So that's the number one. And the number two is the 10,000 or so chemicals that are put into, and it's like different chemicals and different plastics, especially when they're in contact with food and water, are leaching into the foods and water. And so we are now ingesting these hormone disruptors, which are the most problematic, like the phthalates, and the PFAS and the things like that. So very recent media on this has been like 250,000 nanoplastics in one bottle of one disposable water bottle, because they now have like a lot better ways to measure how many like tiny particles are in there. So it's really, really distressing. So I'm just really not going to belabor it, but knowing that plastics are made from fossil fuels, like this is the linkage, because a lot of people think when we talk about plastic, it's just like the waste side, but it's really also the production side, which is significantly a pretty big contributor to climate change as well. And it's also the fossil fuels industries like Plan B. As we electrify more, they want to really ramp up single-use plastics. They're expected to triple by 2050. So we're in a really bad place. So it's like the more legislation we can do to rein that in, the better. So, okay, so I'm going to skip all this. Microplastics. Okay, we cannot recycle our way out of this problem. But a lot of people want this. It's just that governments aren't really keeping up with the demand, I guess you could say. Okay, so in order to do so Beyond Plastics, which is based out of Bennington College, which is in New York, close to Vermont, but in New York. While Beyond Plastics is a national organization, we're mobilizing for this effort on the state level. So New York City and all of New York. There's this bill called the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act. And I will say PREA from now on because that's such a mouthful, and the acronym is PREA. So PREA was sponsored by Senator Pete Harcum and Assemblymember Deborah Glick. And those are, and like I said, this is dash B now because there was a small amendment. I don't know if you guys can see my pointer, but and it has a few major components. We want to reduce plastic packaging by 50% over 12 years. So this is where I think it's on our side. We're being generous to the manufacturers. So what this means is in 2 years, you have to have a 10% reduction, in 4 years, a 20%, in 6 years, a 30%, in 8 years, 40, and by the 12 years, a 50% reductions. It should have been 10, but I think they made it 12. That might have been one of the small amendments. So anyway, so that's all the primary packaging that the thing is in, and the secondary packaging. So that could be your Target, Walmart, Amazon box, and all the packaging that they put. So all of those have to be reduced by 50% in 12 years. Another big provision is they're going to remove the 12 most toxic chemicals that are currently put in plastics, that folks are not allowed to use those chemicals in the plastics if they do continue to use plastic. And then there's this whole like eco-modulated fee you pay. And so if what remains after the 50% reductions, if it's plastic, you would pay a bit of a fee because those are not easily recyclable. If they're paper or metal or whatever else, you may pay either a smaller fee or no fee. So, and then all that money gets collected by the Department of Environmental Conservation here in New York, and then that becomes revenue for us. Not to mention, you're going to save money on like cleaning highways and sanitation in general, less clogged, sewers and the whole thing. So we went up to Albany yesterday. So this is a perfect time for us to talk about it. So the update is like, we were told that we should really, if you remember, we tried to get this passed last legislative session, and we were told we didn't have a majority of co-sponsors in the Senate and the Assembly at that point. So we've worked really hard over the year too, and achieved a majority in both chambers. So that was a huge win. And we continue to put pressure even on the ones that have co-sponsored, asking them to help us push it through, because there's just, and I'm personally learning a lot about the process along the way and where it could be held up and why. And it's still very, I'm still learning a lot. And then what else? So this is the, and then, so, it's going to save us money too. And actually, we really believe it's going to save the companies. Like initially, they might incur a cost to figure out how to make the changes. But over time, if you're going to reduce the amount of resources you use by 50%, you're going to save money. So we really believe that even the companies themselves that are fighting this so hard will actually save money in the long run. I had my handy, I don't have it right now, but I always bring my alternatives, because it's really effective to show legislators alternatives, because then, they're like, well, what are they going to do? So, we showed alternatives to different types of like plastic film. There's like paper out there, paper film that kind of has the proper, I mean, it's crinkly and loud, but besides that, it has a lot of the same attributes as plastic. So the solutions are out there. We just really believe that this financial, incentive or economic incentive will really get the innovation going with the companies to meet the, and also just like, if you're an Amazon and you're going to do this for New York, we hope that either maybe you'll just do it for the whole country, or that this law will be a powerful example for other states to follow. And so there's that. Here's the 15 toxic chemicals that we're asking them to make sure none of the plastics they use contain those. And really, another really strong thing is to not allow chemical recycling to count towards the metrics of recycling within the bill. So a lot of legislators were against they thought we were trying to ban chemical recycling. That's not the case. I mean, we are against it, but it just, all we're saying is that for the areas in which we collect metrics that say, you know, recyclability, that chemical recycling for plastics would not count. That's all. That's the provision. But we've definitely run into some kind of opposition for some specific people. I met with Assembly Member Hindman yesterday, who I don't know if anyone's in their district, would love to talk to you, please ping me, but went to go visit a chemical recycling plant in North Carolina and seemed to be very persuaded by them without really pushing back on any of the potential problems with it. So this, you know, for some legislators, this is a problem area. Another one that we got more broadly was if the manufacturers have to make these changes, are the costs going to be passed on to consumers? And our overall answer for that is, you know, again, like the cost differential is not as great as you would think. You know, it could just mean, you know, a few, you know, 5 or 10 cents more potentially. And then again, they could save money in the long run, but also if they do pass it on to us, and if we don't pay it, then we're going to pay with our health because of all the different risks associated with ingesting these microplastics, including infertility issues. And actually, I just don't want to talk about it. It's depressing, but a lot of different things. And I think that's kind of all I'll say about it in terms of there I am, in terms of the update. But now Renee can jump in and talk about where you guys might be able to help.
Yeah, so to add on to the updates, so Beyond Plastics worked really hard with other organizations to get more co-sponsors. So we are at a majority, but we could always use more co-sponsors. So in a few minutes, I'll be sure to drop links into the chat for each of these bills in both versions, Senate and Assembly. Rachna really focused on PREA, but there's also the bigger, better bottle bill. And you can see if your legislator is a co-sponsor. And if they are, we would ask that you call them and encourage them to contact either the Senate Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart Cousins, or the Assembly Speaker Hasty, depending on which legislative body they're in, to make sure that these actually get on the floor to vote. So if they're a co-sponsor, that's what we would ask of you as individuals. The second is if they're not a co-sponsor, you can work with us at Beyond Plastics to help set up a meeting with representatives from their office to get them on board and be a co-sponsor with us. There's some more specific ones. The bills are not yet ready for a floor vote, and that they are not out of committee yet. They've moved out of the Environmental Conservation Committee, which is great. It means that they're out of the main place where they would be, the main body of the bill would be written. But we would need to get those bills out of committee. So right now, the PREA is in the Assembly Codes Committee, and Dinowitz is the chair. So again, in a few minutes, I'll drop the number in the chat. If you could call Assembly Member Dinowitz to get him to schedule a committee meeting to get this vote up to the next step, which would be the Ways and Means Committee. And in the Senate, it did pass out of committee yesterday. So while we were there, which was really, really exciting, now it's in the Finance Committee. So if we could encourage you to call the chair of the Finance Committee to get this on a vote, to get it out of committee so it's ready for the floor, that would be great. So again, you don't need to memorize everything I just said. But co-sponsors, moving things to the floor, getting it to a vote, and those would be our main pushes for this legislative session.
Thanks, Renee. Is there any questions we can answer?
Do you have the listing of legislators that have signed on that is in favor? Can we see that so we know if our legislator has signed on or not?
Yeah, let me try to pull that up right now.
Yeah, I had promised I'd get to that, but I did not do it just yet. Thanks, Rachna.
There it is. Okay.
I have a question on the on PREA. Does it address the issue of we start getting rid of plastic bags, but now we have a ton of heavier plastic bags that are kind of like alternate bags that are now all over the place that perhaps will create another solid waste problem? I don't know if I'm in the right ballpark here, but I just wanted to cross my mind.
You're definitely in the right ballpark, and we definitely learned from, I just read it that the California plastic bag ban increased plastic bag waste by 47% because of the new thicker one. So we hear you. They took that in mind when writing this one. This is why the eco-modulated fees, potentially the origin of where they came from. So it's like, okay, if you're going to reduce, and that's why it's very focused on reduction rather than just replacing it with something. And so once you reduce, whatever you use is going to be like determined, like how much of a fee. And basically, as far as I know, because a lot of the legislators are like, how do you determine who's going to sit there and determine like which ones are, like what costs more, which plastics are costlier or whatever. And I don't think we're there at that phase of like detail, but I would imagine if there is a market for it, for the plastics even, then you would pay potentially a smaller fee than if it was a plastic that has just no recyclability markets out there, But yeah, I think we're either just like, we're not at that level. I mean, Renee, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, the bill is focused on reduction first and foremost. And then from there would be a scale of fees, dependent on how recyclable the actual content is.
Right. Wow. I'll be reaching out offline to you guys too. Drop messages in the chat. Had some
Please
thoughts.
do. And actually someone in this SWAB, if I can shout her out, I don't even know if she's here, Kathy Schwartz. I was here last time and mentioned if anyone, is a member of this Rockland County, Kenneth Zabrowski, and we met with him last week. We planted the seed, and then yesterday at the lobby day, they like closed it. So he's on. So it's like, this is working. I just want to it was like such a huge, like, yay, Beyond Plastics Queens, QSWA, we're all like working together. But it was a nice like melding of efforts, and we were successful, right? So we're just chipping away. Like, we want to get as many as we can. And by the way, I told her, or anyone else, like, I will do all the emailing, the scheduling, everything, but it just at the time of the meeting, and if you can't come in person, we'll do the virtual. The in-person ones I find are much more effective. But if you can just be there, and then say, you can say very little if you want, or a lot if you want, but it's just like a good partnership for us to get into the legislators with their constituents, because they listen to constituents way more than just the random organizations.
Can you send this out to us? Can you drop this in a link or something? This listing?
I don't see why not. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Cool. Do that right now. Thank you. Okay, so if that's it, then I will
and apologies in advance, but I'll be dropping a lot of information in the chat to give you the specifics about our asks that we had.
yes.
Hey, Ryan or Vanessa, can you tell me if I'm wrong about this? But we have a bunch of people who are not on tonight. And so would it be possible instead to send it through our email? That way everybody would get it.
Sure. Can,
I just
can
feel like
I,
more people are likely to get it that way than going back and looking at the recording of this.
of course, of course. I just don't know. Do I have access to send, or I'll send it to Ryan if I
Yeah,
don't. So
yeah.
I'll get it.
You can do that also. The chat's saved and I can pull out anything you put in the chat and email it out. So either way works.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks,
I'll
Ryan.
make
We'll
sure
get back
everyone
to you.
has all this. Yeah, totally,
Yeah.
totally. And also these recordings for, well, I guess I'm not talking to them because they're not here, but for folks who want to watch this again or watch along with stuff, it's always helpful.
Yeah. And Kat is on the call, but just to, you know, because me and her met with Sam Berger, he's still on the fence. I'm not sure I don't know I can get you a better update about him, but I think he still has some questions that we should ask him to help him address those, if you know. But you remember at the meeting it seemed like he was at least a little bit. And thank you, Isaac, so
Yeah.
much too.
Yeah, it did seem like it. I'm glad to see that Toby Stavisky is on here as a supporter.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think it's for them, the PRIA is a little bit easier. Somehow the bottle bill is getting some there's this accusations of a fraud can occur, that people can bring bottles from other states. Even though people from the Canners Association were telling me that it's a barcode based, but then other folks are saying no, it's by weight. So this is like a really sticking point for the bigger, better bottle bill. So that one is like, yeah, I really wish, because these two go together really well, but
So Toby's on the finance committee. So I didn't quite catch who spoke because I'm furiously trying to do too many things at once. But if Toby's your rep, it would be great to have a constituent call up that legislator to ask that this bill get voted on in the finance committee so it's ready for the floor.
Yeah, it was Kat Servino. I'm in College Point and she is my rep. So I'm happy to take part in that. You know, if I know when I went with Roshana, it was Roshana and myself and Sam Berger and staff. So if you want to arrange for something similar, I'm happy to join if that's helpful. I know her, so if it could help, I'm happy to.
yeah, Kat. Thank you.
It didn't work the first time. Maybe it'll work the second time.
Hey, we're still working on Burger.
Right.
Y'all are a force. Thank you so much. We're really grateful and happy to return the favor one day for all the aligned efforts. Okay,
Perfect.
I think that's it on our end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and definitely keep us posted on these things. I know I had seen that there was an announcement that there was movement. So but we're very happy that you're on the SWAB, and we're always happy to hear how things are going. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
We do have a quorum now, and some folks noted that they did have to leave early. So rearranging things a little bit, we're now going to move on to voting on the all SWAB testimony. So I can say, and Mary put that in the chat. If you want to drop the link again, I can also share my screen. But just to say, this was from the Joint SWAB Legislative Committee. It's based off of testimony we've drafted and approved in the past. Again, for folks who joined a little later, this is in relation to the Sanitation Committee meeting in City Council that took place on Tuesday. But you know, you can still submit written testimony. So we weren't able to get testimony together for the in-person hearing, but this is now written testimony. So Mary, is there anything you want to add?
I think you've summarized it beautifully. And if you wanted to pull it up from the link. Yeah. Yeah, all of the other SWABs have already approved it. So this is an up or down vote on this testimony. But it basically, as Ryan said, is things that we've already approved in a, now in this new form.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's different is it's a new sanitation committee. So, we've submitted testimony in the past. I think getting testimony to this new committee, especially one that all of the SWABs are signed on to, is something that would be. So I don't know if does anyone have questions or comments or anything anyone wants to raise before we vote? Yeah.
Could I make a motion that we vote for this, to join the other SWABs in this pro composting testimony and pro community composting testimony? Is there a second?
Susan, I second.
Okay, so now we can have discussion.
Yes.
Is there any comment or discussion? Okay, if not, we could proceed to a vote.
Yeah, that sounds great. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Isaac, aye.
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 Great. There any opposed? And any abstentions? Great. Okay, so the motion carries, and we will join the other SWABs in submitting this testimony.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for getting that together. So moving on, and just to mention, I think so there's two places where a lot of this work is happening. One is the legislative committee, with Mary as the chair, meeting jointly with the Brooklyn SWAB's legislative committee. That's where a lot of these testimonies are drafted and discussed and approved for the other SWABs to join on to. There's also the Manhattan SWAB has a compost committee, which we've joined forces with. While we're on the topic of compost, Allison, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have anything that you would like to share with us, and if not, that. Okay. I think the next meeting of the compost committee is the second Monday of the month, so March 11th. I think there's a lot going on. In the first part of March is International Compost Awareness Week. And so there's a bunch of activities going on across the state, but also across the city. And so we'll be linking up with things there. Yeah, I see, Lou, your hands.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I wanted
Yeah.
to know how come the Queen SWAB does not have a committee that focuses on composting, because it doesn't seem to really work when you are partnering with other SWABs, since this letter was drafted 3 months ago. And
Well, this letter was drafted yesterday.
this is an update of the letter
Mhm.
that came out 3 months ago. So I'm just a little bit concerned about that, since community composting is going to be shut down in 125 days. I think 125 days. So there needs to be a little bit more urgency in advocating for that.
Yeah. So, this
Could
is-
I
yeah,
could I
please,
address
sorry.
that?
Yeah.
We have been urgently addressing this since, I believe, November. Doing, people have gone to rallies. There's been social media. People have gone to hearings and testified. We have Bilal on this committee actually lost his job with big reuse. He was their composting leader there. So there's definitely a sense of great urgency and great concern about this. And we've done, I can't even tell you, countless hours have been spent, you know, and also in meetings that Ryan and other SWAB leaders have attended. And also they've drafted legislation. Matt Civello and others. So Abby, who is our vice chair, I don't know whether she's still on this call, but she's the executive director of the Queen's Botanical Garden, and their people had to go on, you know, more part-time basis so they could retain their composters. And she's very personally been involved in this. So I just want to tell you that, you know, this has been a matter of great urgency.
I think a lot of people here know me and they know that I've been pretty involved in this. So I will tell you that I appreciate Bilal, Evie. I think Gil is on this call. Quite a few community composting advocates are here. I just don't see that coming from like Queen SWAB as an organization, which is a criticism that I'm bringing here. I have seen like great testimonies from the SWABs, but not from Queen SWAB. I think Queen SWAB only submitted one testimony at the hearings, and that's one that I brought up to Ryan earlier today. So I do think that there should be a composting committee as part of the SWAB. I've already reached out to Donovan Richardson about this because it really is unacceptable.
So would you be willing to chair the committee?
Yeah, exactly, Lou. Like if you would like to get more involved and share that committee, that would be
sure.
very welcome. Because we did have a compost committee, but it kind of fell apart.
Yeah, I'm more than willing to chair it.
Okay.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Listen, do we know where we're at in terms of city council and maybe bringing this up in their budget for June? Do we know where that stands, community composting?
Yes, we do know.
And is that under nurse or is that under the soon to be or the new sanitation chair?
The Several Compost Coalition actually has a meeting with him next week, which I will be attending. There are a lot of moving parts. I think Gil has his hand raised and he can highlight some key points.
Well, I was just going to point out the fact that there is an organics committee. There's only one organics committee for all SWABs, and that's because there just wasn't enough interest for each of the SWABs to have their own organics committee. The organics committee also has a task force that's working on some specific things. I will say that the reason that this letter is taking a little while is because even if there is an organics committee and it does draft anything that we want to submit formally, it still has to go through the Queen SWAB, which only meets once a month. And then if we want it to be an all SWAB letter, that same letter has to be approved by all SWABs, and each one of them only meets once a month. So that can cause a significant delay. And that's, I think, why we're looking at this now.
Yeah, I get that. And I'm willing to help in any way possible, just because this is something that is like really dear and close to my heart. So
thank you.
I think most people on the SWAB it is as well.
Yeah. I think
Akana, you had your hand raised.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, I saw on the Save Our Compost Instagram that bringing it up into like community boards would also be helpful. Does anyone know if that's like worth the effort?
Yeah,
Like,
we're
yeah.
actually going to be presenting. Susan's going to be presenting to the borough board very soon. And that is one opportunity because it's all the community boards where we can raise some things in. We've also talked about going to each of the community boards and talking about SWAB in general. And since so much of our work is focused on composting, we can incorporate a lot of that into conversations about what's being lost, what folks can do, how they can get involved. So I think that that's something that we could definitely explore. Yeah, Gil.
I'll add that the Queen SWAB, we are doing a good job in inviting all of the community boards to our meetings. So there is already some information getting out there. That said, that's not the case in the other boroughs. And there's still a whole lot of confusion around composting specifically. So introducing ourselves and just letting people know about the SWABs in general is great. Talking about the specific composting issue is something that Save Our Compost. I'm on the education committee for the Save Our Compost, and we are asking for people to volunteer to go to their community board, either the general or the environmental, or the sanitation, and talk about composting. We have a presentation that you can use, and we have talking points.
Hey, Gil, this presentation I'm doing is Monday. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could send me, I'll send you my, I'll put my email address in the chat here. And if you could just send me whatever that information is, that would be great. And what I can do is I can focus on that as a big piece of what the presentation is. Give them a basic idea about what QSWAB is, how we work, and then I can focus a lot on the composting because it is a critical issue right now. And if people have other ideas, please let me know of other things you'd like me to raise.
Great, thank you.
So next I had Evie, and then Kat, and then Rev Thorns. So Evie, if you want to go.
Sure. Yeah, just to follow up on that, I think there should be an ask of community boards. So we should be asking each community board to either pass a resolution or write a letter in support of community composting. So I'm actually going to be at that meeting on March 4th but as a participant, but I'll be listening intently, Susan, as you present. But I think, for those people who are on the Zoom right now, who are on a community board, either through your environmental committee or, finding some way to get some kind of resolution or a letter of support that we send to all the electeds and the mayor and DSNY, I think is really important, just because it does take time for that process as well. And so if you kind of go in with that ask and maybe even a draft resolution that all the community boards, it can be the same one, you know what I mean? They just change the name of the community board, but stuff like that will be helpful in terms of getting a resolution passed or a letter of, a letter passed. So if there's, I don't know, Gil, if your education committee has thought about a resolution or anything like that, but trying to draft one up soon just would be useful for community boards so that they're not starting from scratch because all the details. So
Yeah.
We haven't, but I'll suggest that we can work on that.
Yeah, that's I really like that idea of a draft resolution. It's like a really easy thing that we can, send around to people. Kat, I had you next.
Bresler or Servino?
You, Bresler.
Just checking. I encourage you all to listen to your chairs that are on here. I just wanted to reiterate that the meeting is the borough board is just of the chairs. It is not like all 700 community board members, right? So the borough president and I had discussed, and Ryan agreed that we're trying to increase the engagement. Although, Gil, it's great to hear that we've got, sorry, please excuse Rain's comments in the background. Gil, it's great to hear that our SWAB is so active with their community boards, but we do want to still increase community board engagement. And that the borough board meeting is an effort to reach more of our chairs to encourage more community board engagement. So if there's any way that we can do that.
And Kat,
please let us know.
one of my thoughts was talking about what we can do for the community boards, like we've talked about doing presentation. But also what the community boards, how we could be helpful to them. Because if we want more engagement, I think we need to know, are there things that we can be, do they have suggestions? So.
Yeah. And we're hoping that if the meeting of the minds happens during borough board, that the invites will also come from other chairs. Well, we're lucky that so many of our chairs are participating in QSWAP. What we still don't have is some regular engagement from other CBs, right? And that's where we're hoping that we can make inroads at this meeting.
And I think our goal is eventually to do presentations to any individual community board that wants one. We had piloted one, and I think this borough board meeting will be another opportunity to just introduce ourselves to folks and pilot that presentations. Next I have Reb Thorbs and then Lou.
In regards to the topic about the composting, I don't think there is enough conversation and knowledge from within the board about composting. We've had a few come to CB12, a few individuals come and do presentations, but I think a refresher is always welcome, and that way there are more people within the community that can latch on to this. Sometimes not necessarily the board members. We have hard enough time getting them to be on committees, but there are people within the community that are looking for projects like this. And so it'd be great to open it up to neighbors so that they can see that there is something like this going on. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's really great. Lou.
Yeah, what I wanted to highlight was that the Sever Compost Coalition began drafting a letter, I want to say 2 weeks ago, potentially 3 weeks ago. So I will retrieve that letter and see how far along it is. And I'm happy to share it with you guys. And I'm also happy to work on developing the letter for Queens Community Boards with anyone who might want to jump in.
That's great. That's great. And I can follow up with you afterwards about seeing what makes the most sense for how we want to organize things. Because I think, I think we do want to have things that represent our values. So like having an organics committee. We also want to make sure that, it's the best way to move forward. And I think what we found previously was that, there weren't a ton of people attending. And so we consolidated with the other SWABs to get the most people in the room at the same time. But I think if it makes sense and we have things to work on, we can definitely try out having a QSWAB organics committee. So I can follow up with you afterwards about what setting that up would look like and how we can see about getting that started.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Great. So yeah. And I think there is a ton that we have to work on and that the joint kind of SWAB initiative on this as well has some things in the works, but approaching this from all angles is definitely something we can do. So let's see. So with that, I should say, is there any other comments? Those are all the hands. Are there other comments on composting before we move on?
Well, I just think it's wonderful that Walter has the passion, the concern, and he's educated around the subject of composting and want for us to have our own committee. I think if he brings that passion and that commitment, that we'll get folks, you know, to join in and be a part of it. So I really think it's something we should not let go, but we encourage and we ask him to bring forward some ideas as to how best to approach this, as well as actually just going direct, as opposed to just the borough board, but going direct to the civics. Have that committee, that compost committee that's being formed. Reach out to the community boards and maybe even talk about compost workshops, working through Evie and her organization. But it's not something we want to drop. When we get someone in our org that is saying to us they want to do this, they want to be involved, then we need to make it happen. Those are my thoughts.
What about the community gardens that we have in our areas? Will the composting be extended, that conversation be extended to them as well?
Yeah, I think so. Gil, I don't know if that's in response to this or a different point.
Yeah, I've made this point before, because I am an environmental educator. I do teach about composting all the time. I'm currently funded by 9 city council members to do so in 9 different city council districts. And I really want to be careful as I spend my volunteer time to be on the solid waste advisory board. We're here to advise elected officials on how to deal with solid waste. And if we think it's necessary for us to go into community boards and community gardens and botanic gardens and street fairs and libraries or wherever else we want to do this education work, we should be advising city council to fund the work instead and not relying on the reason we don't have an organics committee is because it's a big lift to chair and participate in a separate committee, and then to put on them to start going to all the community gardens and botanic gardens and community board meetings is just too much. And we should really be advocating for people to be paid to do that, because we all seem to agree that that's important and it needs to be done, but that's not what we're here for.
Yeah, nothing wrong with people being paid. The only thing I heard from Kat though was engagement and more engagement. And that's the piece we're trying to wrap our heads around. How do we get there? But nothing wrong with being paid. I'm with you on that, Gil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll beat that same pan till I'm dead, maybe.
You know, and I think that, you know, we don't operate in a vacuum, and I think that you know, it does take us longer to approve things like testimony and letters, but I think that as the advisory board, you know, folks like the sanitation commission or committee are looking for, particularly when all the SWABs are signing on to something together, is something that is advisory, showing that this is something that you know, advisory board of community members has put together as something that's crucially important. So I think that we the both and, not an either or kind of thing, in my opinion. But it's awesome. Perfect. So while we're here, let me see, is Bilal still? No, Bilal had to hop off. I was going to turn it over to committee reports. This was largely what this testimony that we just voted on was largely what the legislative committee was working on. But Mary, is there any other things that you can think of that's coming up? I know that this was kind of what was talked about at the last legislative meeting was.
I think community composting and composting in general have been, taken up since November. It's taken up all the time.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I thought too. Similarly, with environmental justice, TBD on the next meeting, but a focus there for folks who are joining us newly has been on the state's definition of disadvantaged communities under the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. So making sure that that is representative of environmental justice communities, as well as doing some work focusing on things like 311 complaints, on illegal dumping, that sort of thing, figuring out ways to monitor that and work with community boards. Our State of Waste in Queens report had a few community districts that we were particularly interested in working with. So I know that that's an ongoing thing that they're working on. As well as last year in November, we had a plastic audit, a cleanup where some volunteers went out, picked up some trash as a way to measure, how much plastic waste is in our environment. And actually, this is speaking of Beyond Plastic. I saw their webinar on the lawsuit that the state attorney general is bringing against Pepsi, and that's how that lawsuit started, is where they picked up a bunch of waste and did an inventory of how much of that waste was coming from Pepsi products. And so the idea behind this, with the Microplastics Coalition, of which we're a part, is to kind of just get a sense of how much plastic is out there. So there's going to be another one coming up, I believe in March. That details are still coming through, but that's something that the EJ committee is also working on. So those are two. For communication education, Jenny, is there anything that you have to report on that?
No, we didn't get a chance to meet last month, so hopefully we'll be able to meet this month.
No worries. Awesome. So with all of that, I wanted to make sure we've kind of gone back and forth just because I knew that we were going to have an issue with quorum, with people having to drop off. So that's something I wanted to address at the beginning. But so last meeting, we had a conversation about the Zoom setup. So obviously all of you were able to work it out. We're no longer requiring registration. This Zoom link will be the same for every meeting. So you can just save the Zoom link and join this meeting right from the Zoom link. And for folks who are interested in joining, whether it's a speaker or a member of the public, they're also able to just join with this link. The same thing. I sent emails, or I invited people to the SWAB's calendar for this. So if you use Google Calendar, you can accept that and it'll automatically show up. But also just, this is something that the Education and Communication Committee put together, was really making this calendar more reflective of our actual meetings. And so while we'll continue to provide notice through the normal email channels, this link that I put in with the SWAB calendar is really where, once someone provides information to either me or someone on the committee, and this is where it's going to be updated first. So the dates and times and Zoom links for all of our meetings, as well as some of the key meetings of the other SWABs, all live in this calendar. It's a good resource to know when things are happening, where things are happening. But we'll continue to send out email notifications as well. The big thing is no longer requiring registration. So that worked for you all. We'll make sure no one had any problems. I didn't see any emails from people trying to join. But we'll continue to try this out and see how it works. Great. Yeah, I think it was very easy. And I think with external speakers, it'll be even easier, because we can just create a link, send them a Google Calendar invite rather than have to go through having them register or whatnot. So I think that works really well. Looks like everyone had found that as well. And that's how the committees are as well. And that worked also because when you have registration, someone on the official account would have to start each meeting. But when they're like this, you don't have to. So the committees have always had this, or have had this for a while, where you can just join without needing to register. I think it's probably the way we'll stick with. The other thing I wanted to raise, and this is something that we talked about in executive committee meeting, was, you know, last month we had a presentation about sustainability initiatives at JFK Airport. We have the opportunity to continue that work. Susan has some contacts with sustainability folks at the Port Authority more broadly, covering more than just one terminal of an airport. So I think based on the conversation last month and our committee meeting, there seemed to be interest in exploring sustainability at the airports further. So I'm wondering if folks had interest in that, and whether, you know, probably maybe not a committee, but starting with a task force. Like, are there folks who would be interested in, you know, I think definitely inviting people back for a conversation, but if there's more that people were interested in, we could start like a working group to kind of explore that.
Ryan,
Yeah.
are
Mary.
Rain Manley and Matt Gove involved in that? Because that's like, they have, like, you know, reusable water bottles, and, you know, they're all over that. You know, Rain's you know, that's her thing. I mean, you know, so she should be involved in that if she isn't.
Yeah. I'm not sure, because this is Susan. I saw you unmuted. I don't know.
Yeah, so you're saying, so you mean for the Port Authority? I just actually was chatting with Gil, because there was a suggestion at last month's meeting for Gary about the possibility of distributing New York City branded water bottles or free water bottles to people to reduce the use of plastics. Is that what you're saying, Mary? That there's somebody that we should be in contact with?
There's a very strong group called Reusable NYC, and they must be involved in this. I can send you their information.
That would be great.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'll do that right now.
Yeah. I think that would be great. And we were talking about how, you know, in our executive committee, we were thinking this is, you know, assuming there's interest in the SWAB, but this is a really great opportunity for us because, you know, the airports of New York City are in Queens. That's something that the SWAB is uniquely positioned to address, and it's also another entity to be engaging with as in an advisory role. So I think we'll definitely plan on having folks from the Port Authority come to one of our meetings to have another presentation and the opportunity to ask questions. And just keeping on the radar, if people are interested, we could continue further and see what that looks like. I don't know if anyone has any initial thoughts on that, but that was something we had just started to discuss.
I love that idea, because I know in listening to that presentation, I just felt like, oh, this is a great start, and I'd like to see it expanded greatly. Like, it's such a large amount of people going through, and we do have these two airports, like you said, so it's a great place to try to tackle this. So I really like the idea.
My understanding, Kat, is that the Port Authority has certain sustainability targets, and then each of the different terminals is responsible for their own whatever, what for their own sustainability efforts. And so that's why Gary gave me the contact information for the people at the Port Authority who oversee all of sustainability stuff at the airports. And one of the other things that we talked about at our executive committee meeting is that one of the ways, Gary Weinstein, who presented last month, would be interested in being on the SWAB committee, which would be a way that we have constant communication with him and a way of, he works here in Queens for a huge potential polluter and, and does a lot to try to decrease the waste that's produced at that, at Airline Terminal 4. So, it's great when we've had people from Department of Sanitation. It's great to have all the various players that we want to try to communicate with. I think on the SWAB, because it just opens up channels of communication. And so anyway, that was a thought. I don't know what other people think about that.
I just sent you the email, Susan. Yeah, my thought is that, the amount of time that composting has taken just to address what was going on in the city council and, DSNY and in the communities. We're spread kind of thin here. So taking on a big, huge new thing, I think, Rain and Matt would be good partners.
Yeah. I think that's good. And I think that this gets to Gil's point too, is that, I think what we actually end up doing on things and how many hours of, can be limited and restricting more to advisory and partnering with folks. I think with Matt and Rain, like, us lending ourselves as the SWAB to partner with them in doing something, I think is something that would be feasible. Taking on a project with a similar amount of dedication as we've given to composting recently would be certainly a challenge, but not something that I think needs to be done to be worthwhile. I think we can certainly advise and work with other groups, if only to get a foot in the door for folks who haven't already. As the Queen SWAB, we do have that ability to meet with folks and get a seat at the table, which I think we could leverage. And similarly with like the work that Beyond Plastic is doing and plastic legislation, we've signed on to coalitions in the past, like the New York Microplastics Coalition. It's something we've endorsed and have worked on organizing some of these cleanups. But I think that those are also some things that we could explore further. And I think committee participation is something we're still wrestling with as a SWAB. And so, on the one hand, we want to make sure that there's committees that people are interested in so that they're, actively participating and not in something that they're not interested in, but also not wanting to have so many that they're spread too thin and people aren't able to actually get things done. So I think we're still trying to find that balance of what can we take on that engages members of SWAB without spreading ourselves too thin, but also without cutting off opportunities to be advising on solid waste issues. So things to think about both with airports and as well of plastics in general. Because I know like a lot of things come up through the legislative committee as like legislation comes up in city council, and that's where a lot of work has been done, particularly around like bans at the city level. But I think if we want to do kind of a broader scope, those are also things we can.
Ryan, I was just
Yeah.
thinking, I know when Sandy Nurse became the chair of sanitation committee, we invited her to come to our board and meet with her and just talk through who she is and then talk through what her vision was for the committee and any legislation she plans to introduce and so forth. So I'm just curious, are there any plans around that to invite the new chair
Yeah,
to
yeah.
come to our board meeting?
I think that's a great idea. The SWAB chairs, we've met with him and his staff to kind of talk about some of the things that our priorities have been. He seemed very open to a lot of what we'd been working on. Committed to community composting, working on us with some op-eds, particularly around community composting. So unfortunately, we're one of the last SWABs to meet in the month. So he went to the Brooklyn SWAB and possibly Manhattan SWAB as well. So this month wasn't possible, but I think that's something we can definitely reach out and have him come and talk to us just about what his priorities are, and we can ask questions. And I think that's another way of finding out, like we were saying earlier, not only what we would like of the sanitation committee, but also what the sanitation committee would find helpful from us, particularly around some of their legislative agenda, and what we can do to help move things forward. So I can reach out to him and see if he's available for next month, or some sort of like roundtable event between now and then. Because we also have another thing of interest. So Samantha McBride, who many folks know, formerly with DSMY, now teaching. She just did an evaluation of compost, the curbside program, and had some findings that she wanted to share. So that again came in a little too late for this meeting, but that I think would also be interesting to hear some of her findings on the curbside rollout in Queens, and kind of how some of the programmatic details, like the pause that happened, have impacted action. Yeah, Gil.
Just to address that, Samantha actually submitted or gave testimony at the hearing yesterday, and she sent me her report. And the big bombshell is, while Department of Sanitation is claiming huge success and they're talking about the millions of pounds that they've collected, they've got a 4.7% capture rate. In some districts, it's as low as 1.2%. So that is not a success. It's better than it was before because it wasn't being offered. But the fact of the matter is, and I've mentioned this before, Department of Sanitation continues to cherry pick the data, continues to bake the numbers, and continues to use the compost project, which it just killed, as a greenwash for their program. So just in a nutshell, that's what Samantha has to offer. But she has some other really good stats that I would love to see her present that research. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I haven't. She sent it along, and I haven't had a chance to read it. I can ask if she's open to sharing it with the whole SWAB ahead of time. But yeah, a lot of the points that she highlighted were very much in line with what we've been talking about, for the need of a diversity of drop-off options. Having curbside be the only thing is not a viable solution. But lots of other stats as well. Gail and then Mary.
Oh, sorry, I should lower my hand.
No worries. Mary.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to, call Kat's attention to the, what Gil just put in the chat, which is, that the lease isn't going to be renewed. I mean, it's just, what can the Queensborough president do to preserve,
I was
you know,
wondering if you were saying Kat Servina or Kat Bresler.
Ted Bresler? Yeah.
Well, Gil, what can the Queensborough president do, and what has the Queensborough president done?
We just got a letter of support from Borough President Richards, and we submitted it. And there, a couple days later, we had that Justin had that meeting, and which I guess today or yesterday, and they in Parks confirmed that they have no intention of renewing the lease again. You know, it's been multiple 6 months renewal leases since 2020, late 2020. And they are very clear that they are not going to renew it. They basically said they don't care that every single elected official and the SWAB and the community board support keeping us there. They just don't seem to care. I really am at a bit of a loss. I don't know. I mean, I have ideas. They involve nonviolent direct action, which, so this is the part where I depart from the advocacy work and go and put my activist hat on. I really am not sure what we can do as advocates anymore. I think we've done everything we can do. And the Parks Legal is just being insolent, and they just want us gone. So I don't know what else we can do legally.
I just put in the chat because I'm curious. So Shekhar Krishnan is my council member, and he is the committee chair for parks for New York City, for the city council. I mean, do we understand what's going to happen to that land under the
They're going to
Queens?
turn it into a parking lot.
So
And
they're going to
and
pave Paradise.
Shakir also. So we had Julie Wan, and who's the council person for that district, and Tiffany Kaban. It's kind of near the border, and we had Shakir Krishnan, who's just on the other side of Julie, and also the Parks Commissioner. They all wrote letters of support. Parks does not give. They don't care. It's frustrating. I don't know what else to say. It's frustrating, and I'm kind of angry about it. I'm obviously not angry at anybody here, but it's infuriating.
Yeah. Not changing the subject, but commercial waste zone is about to roll out. We know it's starting here in Queens. It's going to be starting over in Central Queens. I think we need to have someone coming in to talk around that. Maybe we could speak to our council member for sanitation when he comes in. But I mean, they are just pretty much changing everything the way it occurred with commercial waste and these trucks. And I am one of the ones that rallied for it and so forth. But we want to be sure there's transparency, and we want to be sure that it is accomplishing what we wanted it, that it's doing what we wanted it to do. So I think we need to get ahead of this and get a sense as to where things are at and the rollout for Central. How's that going to happen? What is it going to look like?
Yeah, totally. I think that's definitely something we can have to get even an update on what's going on and what we can be looking for.
Right. I totally agree. It's huge. It's a huge, in terms of tonnage, the commercial waste and the construction debris isn't included in it, but it's the lion's share.
Yeah.
Have they announced who won the contracts for that zone?
Yeah. Adam sent everything out. He sent an article.
I gotta go back and look at some of that.
Yeah, he sent that out. We know who the players are.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, who's in which zones and so forth. But they're starting Central Queens. That's where
in November, right?
Not sure if it's November, to be honest.
Yeah.
The article. The article
Not-
I read said Central Queens is going to be the kickoff. So I guess that's the pilot. But we need to know as much as possible as we can, because guess what? One of the players is in Southeast Queens. It's in our district. So need to know what we can expect and what we can look forward to.
Mhm. And that was part of that hearing yesterday, was also pushing to allow commercial haulers to tip at Department of Sanitation transfer stations. So that would potentially reduce lengths of trips as well. And just also on this waste zone, I don't know if this is a secret or not, but I know of at least one commercial compost micro hauler who is very interested in setting up operations in Central Queens to go ahead and like get in there and demonstrate that micro hauling can be done. There have been, I think the people that won the contract, the businesses that won the contract have been shown an openness to subcontract with the micro haulers. So there will be a push for micro haulers to find a processing site nearby, because that unlike trucks, they can't just drive it for miles. They need a near place to bike the stuff to. So we can expect that to be happen. Like,
well, take biking any day over trucks coming through your streets doing emissions. It's been the wild, wild west for a long time. So
well, hopefully this will reduce greatly the amount of trucks.
yeah, hopefully.
Mhm.
So Ryan, if you can have someone come in just to speak to that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And if folks have ideas of who they would like to hear from, please let us know. But we can, I have a running list here of people we want to. Good stuff. We're just about out of time. So are there any other new business items people want to raise before we end? Any events people have that they want to highlight? Great. So I'll let folks know when committee meetings are happening, both in the calendar and also over email. But yeah, otherwise, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone.
Okay.
Right.
Aye, thank you.
Bye.
Night, everyone.